Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony, which today commemorates the centenary anniversary of the First Battle of Gaza. My name is Dennis Stockman, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Guy Blackburn. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and other operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Trooper Solas Nassau. Solas Nassau was born in New Ireland, New Guinea, in about 1887. His father was a Frenchman and his mother was a native of New Guinea. He was orphaned at an early age when his father committed suicide, and his parents had not married and his mother could not be traced. Solas was adopted by the Reverend Oldham and his family, at that time working on a Methodist mission in the Bismarck Archipelago. When they returned to Australia around 1898, Solas returned with them. The Oldham family wholeheartedly embraced Solas as one of their own and never treated him differently to any of their own sons. The Oldham family settled in South Australia, where the Reverend worked at the Methodist Church in Narracourt. Solas was educated at home and later went to live with Mr Bottrell in Yarrawee, where he learned to farm wheat. Nassau was an enthusiastic member of the Methodist Church and was well known in Narracourt and Laura. He was very talented musically and had what was described as a winning disposition. In 1913, Solas Nassau became a naturalised Australian. When the Oldham family followed the Reverend's move to a church in Horsham, Nassau entered the employment of a Mr Gist of Kalki. A short time later, however, he followed the example of two of his adopted brothers by enlisting in the Australian Imperial Force. He had tried to enlist once but was turned down for problems with varicose veins before he was finally accepted in October 1915. Nassau had previously served with the Light Horse in Laura, South Australia, and so was accepted for overseas service with the 8th Light Horse. In November 1916, not long after his arrival in Egypt, he was transferred to the 1st Anzac Battalion of the Imperial Camel Corps. On the 19th of April 1917, Trooper Nassau and his battalion took part in an attack against Gaza. They began their operations at 6 a.m. and met heavy enemy shell fire and long-range rifle fire. The men were forced to make a rapid advance with no cover, taking casualties all the way. They were withdrawn later that evening. Trooper Nassau did not return. He was 30 years old. Flags in Horsham flew at half-mast for Trooper Nassau. He was considered a great favourite with all who knew him, and his family mourned his loss. Solas was the second of their sons to die in war. Company Sergeant Major Frederick Oldham had died of pneumonia a month previously. In May 1917, the body of Solas Nassau was found on the ground over which the advance had taken place. Although he was recorded as having been buried at that time, the Imperial War Graves Commission could not locate his grave, and he is now commemorated on the memorial to the missing in the Jerusalem War Cemetery. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, along with many more than 60,000 Australians who died during the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Trooper Solas Nassau, his brother, Company Sergeant Major Frederick Oldham, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the Last Post.
They shall not grow old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and good evening.